We all remember recess growing up in school. Recess was a time of day where you could have all the conversations that you could not have while in class. Recess is where you had the real conversations. And real conversations we're going to have. In each episode of the Recess Podcast, I'm going to have real conversations explaining students and school. I'm David McGuire, and I'll be your host. It's recess time, y'all. Welcome, everybody, to episode 6 of season 2 of the Recess Podcast. It's been a couple weeks for my family. I miss you guys, but really excited about today's show. It's going to be a very powerful conversation. If you're first time tuning in, the Recess Podcast stands for Real Education Conversations, explaining students in school. And today's definitely going to be a real conversation. I have some amazing educators with me. Actually, I just found out today that I have 3 of the 64,000 Indiana Teacher of the Year winners with me today. So I don't know if you guys saw Dr. McCormick, but she named all Indiana teachers Teacher of the Year. So congratulations to you all. Make sure y'all put that on your resume. Right at the top. So again, the title of this episode is Relationships Matter. And most educators know, like, if you know me, I've built my entire career off of the importance of establishing relationships. I think I've gotten as far as I've gotten in my career simply because I've been able to build relationships. And so it's paramount to the work that we do. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the crew. We're going to start off with my man, Dustin. Dustin, introduce the folks who you are and tell us who the most impactful teacher that you've had.
Dustin Ecker, 4th grade teacher at Grassy Creek in Warren Township. This is my 10th year teaching. And honestly, was watching my father just build experiences for his students and the people that he coached as well. And just seeing the experiences that he tried to provide, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps. Also, just being the fact that I was somebody that struggled, especially in math, and I come up with those 27 X's on my paper, but not know what to do with it. And so I wanted to be somebody who could provide that source of assistance the kids needed so they could have that growth mindset growing into their academic career.
Absolutely. Juanita.
Hi, I'm Juanita Price. I'm going to say I am an educator. I prefer teaching like younger students. So I've taught kindergarten and I'm currently teaching 2nd grade, but I just really love those foundational years because I feel like that's the most impactful. Research shows it as well. Like if we get them in those earlier years, we can help them to find those transitional or transferable skills that will help them in and through life. So, I'm sorry, I can't just say one. My mom, of course, because I mean, they are our first teacher, which that lends to this conversation. Like they're so important. So my mom is the first teacher, and then 2nd grade, actually, that teacher helped me to really, really love reading and education. And then my 5th grade teacher, she helped me to see beyond like elementary and middle. She actually followed me, and we still keep in touch to this day. So
much love.
All right, my name is Kasha Hayden. I am a critical pedagogue and also a 2nd grade educator at the historic Elder Diggs School, Ignite Achievement Academy. And I can say that I've had a lot of influential teachers. Probably my most influential teacher was my 5th grade teacher. She was Miss Purdy when she was my teacher, but Mrs. Christine Stratman, she really loved me and showed me a lot of grace. She taught me, I mean, it was a lot of tough love too. I mean, I'm talking about you got to redo your papers. And if it wasn't for her, I was in a gifted and talented program, but even though, I mean, she did not let me slide on anything. I remember missing field trips, even though people thought I was a teacher. She didn't care. I was always talking, always in trouble, but she taught me how to be a teacher and taught me how, like, our relationship. She's the reason why I show so much grace towards students now. So.
Good. Well, listen, again, in case you just tuned in, this is the Recess Podcast. Our episode is Relationships Matter. Before we jump in, I cannot start the show without saying happy birthday to Malcolm X. I think I put the quote up here. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. We've seen this quote around schools and everything like that. So just wanted to take a moment to wish Malcolm X a happy birthday. And I think now more than ever, I think we've had to get a little more Malcolm X in us, just with everything going on when we're talking about fighting for our baby. So definitely want to salute him on today. So if you're tune into the Recess Podcast. One of the things that we always do is we always like to have folks engage with us. So if you're tuning in live on Facebook or on our YouTube page, the Recess Podcast, we love for people to engage with us. So please get those comments posted. We got some folks right now that have posted comments, so we'll get those put up for everybody. If you do share the page, I ask that you don't do the watch party because it takes away from the ability to comment, but definitely share it. Let's get as many people logged in so we can have a great conversation. So I start every episode with something called Can Y'all Explain This? So as you know, Joe Biden, Vice President Joe, Uncle Joe, whatever you want to call him, is the Democratic nominee for president. And so I found this article from Project Forever Free titled Joe Biden Signals That Parents Will Not Have a Seat at His Education Table. So I want to read a couple quotes from the author. She says, parents with children who struggle in school do a lot of waiting. Education advocates also do a lot of waiting. I am both. I spend way too much time waiting for my story to matter and my voice to be heard. So if you're unfamiliar, Joe Biden and Senator Sanders started a education unity task force I'm assuming to talk about the policies and procedures that he'll have, for education when he becomes president. But one of the things he left off was the voices of parents. So he got all these business people and, I'm assuming he's doing it for the sake of votes, but I think he left off a very critical message. And she ends it by saying, on the contrary, the people he and Senator Sanders selected for the Education Unity Task Force send an unmistakable message that our wait for basic respect and seat at the table continues. So I want to ask you as we get started, we're talking about relationships, right? So how important is the relationship between the student or between the teacher and the parent? Who wants to take the first stab about, just how that's important and why it's important?
I'll go. So it's important because obviously, like I said, our parents are the first ones that know us. They know how we learn. They know what we can handle. They know how you can push us, how you can motivate us. They just know those things that I think is important for teachers to also know so that they know how to deal with them in the classroom. So, yeah, that's interesting that he left them off.
Yeah. So, Price, I want to ask you real quick. So I know you wrote a piece a while back in the 74 about the importance of those relationships. So just talk to us like how you have prioritized, engaging parents. Because I know it can be hard sometimes getting parents involved. So why have you made that a focus and how have you done it?
Because again, we need to be able to talk to the parents so that we can help to motivate the students in the classroom. And I also believed, like the reason why I wrote that article, and even still in this new school district that I'm in, if we can contact the parents instead of the students getting in trouble and us sending them out, like we can better understand what's possibly going on with the child. So I call the parents instead and say, hey, let's figure out how we can work this out. Like, I don't want to send them out of the classroom. I want them to stay in here with me. So even if I have to ask the parent to come in and observe, like, let's figure out together what it is that we need to do to make sure that your student is successful, or your child, my student. I even used to write but I would put the Y in parentheses to let them know this is our child right now. This is our responsibility.
Actually, so Kasha, I know you work at Elder Diggs, Ignite, and anybody that knows the educational landscape know that Ignite took over at 43. So 42. How was 42? You said 42, right? Sorry about that. So how was it important for you all to continue to foster those relationships with parents and keep them engaged with everything that was going on with the turnover and everything like that?
You know what? It was paramount for us because a lot of parents, they're like, what is going on? When they're so used to seeing all these faces and all these new people came in, we had to come in and build a level of trust. And that's something that you'll hear me talk about a lot, is just building those relationships. I don't care what anyone says. They can say that this particular demographic of parents don't care and they do this and they do that. When you give me your child, you are giving me the very best that you have. And sometimes everything, and honestly, if you look at how we turn our children over to people, it's really unnatural. I've never met you before, but here comes August. Let me give you the very best of me. So why do I have to trust you as a parent? So it's very important. But one thing I want us to really think about is that engagement and involvement aren't always the same things, and they always don't look the same. I'm a teacher and a parent. somebody can say that I'm not an involved parent because I work the same amount of hours that my child's teacher does.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? When he comes home, I'm asking him questions. I'm checking things. If I get an email, I may not even email right away, but guess what? I'm in that room and I'm in his ear and on his tail. So you can't always judge by the level of involvement that you see, but you have to keep those communication lines open, and you have to make sure that you don't come from a deficit mindset as an educator. But yeah, we always make sure, and we even take surveys and ask our parents, what do you need from us? How do you like for us to communicate? And we've done that from the beginning.
Absolutely. So Dustin, I know you spoke to Warren. You work in Warren Central, and I followed you on Facebook and social media. So I've seen the way you've engaged with your students. Why have you prioritized that engagement with the parents specifically in order to get to what you ultimately want, which is students learning?
Yeah, I think it ties into both what Kasha and Juanita said as well. Just again, the importance of relationships is paramount in the classroom. The parents knowing that they can trust you with their child is going to move mountains for what they allow, like the student results as well. I think that them knowing that you're going to come to them with the good, the bad, and the ugly and tell it straight and tell it how it is something they can respect. They don't want this. They don't always want the sandwich. They don't always want you to fluff. Like they want the real talk, so that when it's good, they know it's good. When it's bad, they know it's bad. I think it's just critical because I don't know, knowing now like that I can communicate to parents from 7 to 10 years ago, and I stay in consistent communication with them. They know I'm not. It's easy for teachers to say, like, oh, I love you guys, I love my students, whatever else. But it's another thing to show it and to show it beyond the years that they're in your classroom. And so I think that goes deeper into the community, especially when you stay put somewhere, knowing that you become a staple where you are, not just in your room 25, but in the community itself.
Absolutely. So how have you guys been able to get those parents who you mentioned might be turned off from school or just not involved? Like, why do you continue to work hard to kind of keep pulling them into the room? Because oftentimes I think we see like those students that need the most support their parents typically aren't the ones that are involved, right? And so have you overcome those parents that are saying, nah, I drop my kid off to you, it's you take them for 8 hours and I get them to pick up? How have you been able to get them involved?
I would say one thing that I normally do, and this is from the beginning of the school year, and this is something I even teach teachers, is I start off with all positive communication. I'm not calling you on the third day to tell you about somebody chewing gum or that they said something, they didn't do this or didn't do that. I even post like little funny things because kids are always saying something funny or little silly things they did. I build that relationship with the parent. So, or even if they do something awful, sometimes it's awfully funny. And so I might tell you exactly what they did in like a funny way and then put a spin on it. I had this conversation with them and, we're all good, and let you know that I got their back, I got your back, and that they didn't even get in trouble and we moved on. And you build that relationship with them like that, and you just slather the whole family in love. And so then later on, when you call them, when it gets serious, they already know that you have their best interest in heart and you've reeled them in.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that the positive communication from the get-go is definitely essential to building that relationship long term, but also making sure from the very start of the year that the student enjoys being in your room. Because when the students come at home every day with good stories to tell and share with their families, you instinctively have that like relationship with the family because they know that their child's excited to go to see you every day. So I think that's a whole nother layer to that relationship with the family, is that the kid is excited to be with you as well.
Yeah. I think I want to, this comment, share them with love as well. Listen, you got to love on these parents. You got to love on them. Sometimes you got to love on them a little harder, right? Like, so, obviously with COVID, it's going to be a lot of fist bumps and, air pieces, but you got to give these parents some love because I think to your point, Kasha, like, I'm about to trust you with my most precious gift, right? Yeah. So I just had a daughter, she's 1 year old, and I can't even fathom, right? Like dropping them off to a stranger. And I'm an educator who people used to drop them off to me, and I was a stranger, but I'm just like, I gotta love you for that. You about to trust me with your most precious gift. I love you already, right? Because you've instilled this trust in me. So, I don't know if you guys know, Juanita and I work together, right? At Tinley. And so parent relationships was like big for us, right? But Juanita, yeah, go ahead.
Because I was gonna say I didn't get a turn to answer, but
I got you.
So actually, I was going to say that, like that plug too. While I was at Summit, it was intentional. Like make those calls to tell the parents, "Hey, I am such and such." Even before we welcome them into the welcome night, the parent night, or whatever. Mm-hmm. So before we meet the parent, before we meet the child, like we're already calling to let them know, "I'm looking forward to seeing you. I'm looking forward to building this relationship with you."
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Go along with that. Yeah, I do the same. Like they for the past 9 years, I've done home visits as an optional thing before school year starts. So as soon as I get my roster, I'm calling ahead and trying to schedule like, hey, if you guys want to meet up somewhere, whether if they don't feel comfortable at home, then I'll meet you somewhere else. Where do you want to meet? Let's meet and chat. And we're not going to talk about anything educational. We're just talking about you as a family. Like, what do you want to know about me? What do you want to share with me about your family? And building that rapport before welcome school night is huge.
Absolutely. Before we move on, I need everybody to take a moment and say hello to our resident Auntie Lauren. I want everybody to wave to Auntie Lauren Peterson. Thank you for tuning in, Auntie. You know you're the education community Auntie, so just wanted to make sure we show you some love. I'm loving these comments. Listen, we got folks that are just pouring in on the comments. I want to post this one right here. So it says, some parents may not want to hear from their kid's teacher, but will be the first person at their game. Sometimes you just have to pop up at the home game or recital to show love and connect with them. Hey, that's real. I done called a couple parents at that basketball game talking about, let's talk about this report card real quick. Let me take a moment. So absolutely, great comment. So I'm trying to let me get all these comments posted. Ashley Hogan got us posted. The home visit, absolutely. I think that's, the home visit is key because I think it's a different level of care, right? And when you say home visits, you stated it's not necessarily going to the home. It's just saying like, let's just meet up, right? It could be at the Starbucks, it could be at the McDonald's, it could be at the Creditplex or Sky Zone or just somewhere. Heck, I can meet you at the park, at the school or something just to get to know you. So you got your hand up.
Yeah, because go ahead. Something else, like even the intentionality of the parents, like Kasha said, like I'm a teacher too, so I don't have children yet, but I know at Tinley we also like had things where parents could come later in the evening, anytime throughout the day, on Saturdays, like making it accessible for parents to come and not just assuming that they're not coming because we don't know why they're not.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So real quick, I got my man Charles Cole. So Charles Cole is 1/4 of the 8 Black Hands. I think. Who's been motivating me. So Charles, thank you for tuning in. He made a good point. Like people are cautious about building that relationship with the parent, right? Because they feel like, you kind of overstep the teacher parent boundaries or whatever. But like, I think somebody said at the beginning, like the moment you drop your kid off, we family. So I'm that cousin. So I'm all up in your business. You're going to be all up in mine because at the end of the day, it's about the child, right? And so we have to get over this whole idea of like, where the boundaries are. Like we're in this together because it's for the sake of children. So I need you to know that we're on the same page. And so we're going to disagree and you're not going to like the stuff that I do. And I might not like the stuff that you do, but it's not personal, right? It's about the children.
Yeah.
So we're going to.
We have those conversations sometimes and you just have to be real with each other, but you have to build that trust with each other. And people do overstep those boundaries sometimes, especially daddies, and sometimes they come in, but you gotta put them back in their place. Put them back in their place and then keep it moving. And then sometimes you just have to when I first started teaching, I was the same age as some of my parents. Well, now that I've been teaching so long, I feel like I'm mothering some of the parents. I'm like, wait a minute, what happened? But, that's just the way it is now. And I do build these relationships even after they've left my classroom. They'll come back and they'll ask me questions or, is it okay that this happened or that happened? I'm like, yeah, it's fine that they've gone on to 3rd grade and that teacher's just fine because they still want your approval.
Absolutely. Juanita, you had a question for the group? Or for the people listening?
Oh, okay.
I'm calling you out.
Thank you. No, but I'm like, so what are boundaries though? Like, because everybody on here agrees that once we have your child, you trust us to a certain extent. So what are boundaries? Like, what are we setting? Like, what is it that we have to put in place so that parents know that they can call or message or whatever whenever they can? Because right now, specifically, I have a Google number so that there are some boundaries, but I've told parents, like, if you're getting off late, you can still message me. You can still call me. I'll respond when I can. If I can't, I can't. But there are no boundaries like that right now because I need to hear from these students.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, Dustin, Kasha, what are boundaries for you all? Like, what boundaries did you create, or you know?
Yeah, I mean, so again, it's different for me too. Like, I'm a 33-year-old single man with a dog. So like, my time is in my students. So it's different. I get that. I get that it's different for everybody too. But for me, like, to be honest, I'm not real good about the boundaries because, like Juanita said, like, to me, I've got the time. I'm going to spend my time investing into my students and their families, no matter what time that is. Now, in middle school year, like, please don't be calling me at 11:30 at night. Like, I know you have my number, but let's not do that because then I'm irritated.
Yeah.
But like, no, right now, I mean, same thing, like communicating. Like right now, I posted something the other day. I saw a free piano. I got a student's been taking piano lessons. And I posted, said, hey, who can help me out? And a former student's dad is the one who said, hey, I've got a box truck. Let's get a few guys that I know, and we'll go move this truck to this other student's house. So it's in the idea of family continuing on beyond the use of my room. That's from 3 years ago. And he's still coming back to help. Same thing when I'm doing like room transformations in my classroom. I send out those, I keep my remind groups. I send those out. And I get families from 6-7 years ago coming in to help. So I think that the lines are a little blurred for me in particular, just because they are my family. Like,
absolutely.
And I think it just I'm very comfortable with communication, and I need to know if something is happening to my kids. My kids can call me anytime. I do have a Google number that I've used for probably 10 years, so I get calls from all types of kids from a long time ago. My cousin was in my class this year. So one time he called me at 1:30 in the morning. So I actually ended up showing up at his house. Like, don't ever do that again. That was scary. I didn't know what was going on. But I do tell my parents that I will respond when I can. But I also will sometimes send a text message and ask, is everything okay? Can this wait? I'm in a meeting or something like that. So they know, and they have multiple means of communication, whether it's class tag or that text message, phone, all of that. But that's just me. I say do whatever is comfortable for you.
Yep. My fellow principal buddy, India, said that I let parents curse when they talk to me. Listen, I do too. Sometimes, you get that as a principal. I get that parent that's mad at you teachers, and so they want to come in and start cussing. And I'm like, hold up, come in the room. Let me shut the door. You can get your little cuss words out, right? And then I say, you feel better? Okay. Now let's have an adult conversation now, because sometimes you just need folks to get those swear words out. But like I said, that's that family, because they know. Listen, you can cuss in this office. When you step outside that office, if you cuss, I'm gonna show you to one of these 14 exit doors, and you're gonna get back in your car, right? So that's that relation. And they know, like, Mr. White, I got some stuff I need to get off my chest. All right, cool. So don't be going up in the teacher's room acting buck wild crazy. Don't be going in the hallway cussing, acting ignorant. Come in this office. We'll shut the door. You can get out what you need to get out, and then we can have an adult conversation. I think that's what family do, right? They come to you, say, I got some stuff I got to say. So the comments are pouring in, folks. We definitely going to get you. We're going to take a pivot, though, real quick, because I think it's important that with everything going on that we talk about, for me, the most critical relationship. And I think if you ask anybody that's been in education, what is the most critical aspect of student achievement? I think people will say it's the relationship between the student and the teacher, right? I believe wholeheartedly, kids don't learn from people they don't like. I don't care how great of a teacher you are. I don't care how much you know your standards, right, how engaging you are. If they don't like you, they're not learning. So for you all, whoever wants to tackle it first, how important was it for you when you first started teaching to establish relationships, or did you even know that was important? So this is more so for our new teachers, right? I know you all know, and veteran teachers, but for our new teachers that are listening, how important is establishing those relationships day one?
There's nothing that's more important. I mean, Again, that was something like I went on a limb the first year I taught when I was down in Louisville. Is I started with the home visits then, and from day one, it's been a key component of my classroom, my management as well. I've never, that is my management. It's my relationships. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have them, you're going to have a class acting complete fools. So, I mean, you can have an impact on a child's desire to learn, their ability to learn, make those meaningful connections. And the new heights that you're able to take them, not just like academically, but socially and behaviorally as well, are all grounded in your ability to create meaningful relationships in which they're a valued member of the classroom community. If you don't have those and that culture is not there, then there's going to be a huge downslide, not just with academics, but behaviors in the social and emotional piece as well. So I can't think your social emotional piece as well. Like kids getting along with each other, being able to have that dialogue, those tough conversations are going to be a lot uglier when you don't have the relationships established with the class as whole as well.
Absolutely. Real quick, I gotta say hi to my mama. Hey, mama, thank you for tuning in. Sorry, I just had to say some love to my mom real quick for tuning in. Kasha, Juanita, like, how important for you two or individuals, like, was that relationship building, right? Like, why was it key to everything that happened in your classroom?
Can I jump in here?
Yep.
Okay, so I started teaching out of the country. And so there was a language barrier and the cultural barrier. And it was really hard and difficult to speak and communicate with the parents anyway. So I learned there, like I had to have a relationship with the students because at least they could speak English a little bit better than their parents. So then it just made it easier. So when the parents came in, I always had a translator, but it just seemed like it was lighter in the room when it was like a parent whose student or whose child I had a better relationship with. So that helped me knowing, like when I came back to the country, you have to take the time to get to know your students. You have to. And I was even thinking when you said that, McGuire, like Rita Pearson. I think you shared that video with us during one of our, I don't know, one of the Sunday communicators or something. I actually wore a shirt yesterday. They had a quote on the back, like every child needs a champion. Like they need to know that we're going hard for them and we're willing to do whatever it takes.
Yep, absolutely.
I will say this, when I'm teaching teachers, I have those who listen to me and I have those who are learning from me. And because they're all just sitting there and I tell them about relationships and they're like, oh yeah, they're all in. But then when I'm watching them, because I model everything for everyone I teach, but those that don't really listen and I watch them struggle and struggle and struggle, it's all, and then I'm just sitting back like, man, I told you. I told you, you want to rush through this thing. But I told you, and it's all about the relationships. People think sometimes that, like I told you all before, you're a miracle worker. No, I work on my relationships with my students. I listen to my students. I'm certified in responsive classroom, and that's what I build. I have a joyful classroom. I have order in my classroom because of our relationships and our relationships with each other. We are one community. And I do that from the very first day. I put the work in during those first 6 weeks. I'm tired. I put the work in so that I'm not just anxious for fall break because I get a break. I'm anxious because my classroom is now working. But that's because it'll work from October to June. Some people struggle from August to June because they didn't build relationships. Right. And I'm not a I told you so type person.
But I told you so.
Exactly.
But then I'm like sneaking in like, can I help?
So I want to post this comment from Brandon Randall. He said, my students have been kicked out of traditional schools and have been arrested. So trust in authority figures is super low with them. So for me, authenticity and consistency are key for my students to trust me to the point where we're in a good space. Listen, I taught at a high school. So I taught at Hal when it was first taken over by Charter School USA. And if you've ever worked in a space of takeover, like you got a group of kids that just have zero trust for anybody older than them, right? That they don't know. And so when you have, I think, students to Brandon's point that's been kicked out of traditional schools and they've already been turned off from school, if you're not establishing that relationship, they don't care nothing about this Pythagorean theorem that you're trying to teach. They don't care about none of this theme of this text. Like they need to know that you understand their plight. You need to understand that their background, and that you understand that this school thing is hard for them, right? And it's something that they're not really sure about. And so if you're not going in day one, first of all, if you walk in your classroom, and I'm all about academics, right? But if you walk in your classroom day one and you don't at least do step to the line icebreakers, then you need to be fired on the spot. Like, I'm sorry, like you got to do something. If you don't know your kid's name by October, that's a problem. If you can't recognize your kid's parents, that's a problem. I got some problems with people that talk about that kid over there. What do you mean? That kid over there?
What's your name? What's your name?
You come here.
If you don't know their names before they go to lunch on the first day, I mean,
hey,
honestly,
listen.
I was just thinking, Dustin, like October is too long. No, I know my kids' name the very first
that
day.
first morning when they're walking in, I'm like, good morning.
Yes.
I don't know their names when they walk in that door.
And if I don't know it, you wearing a sign all day until I memorize your name.
And we're learning each other's names. That comes with just learning those things. And we have to teach first-year teachers how to build those relationships in the classrooms. But it's up to us to do that. But you have to want it. You have to want it and go get it.
So look, you pointed out. Go
ahead. No, I just said somebody said I'm bad with names though.
You better study.
Yeah.
No, McGuire, what you were saying about the icebreakers though. Like the thing is though, is that it's too easy for everybody to like do it as fillers the first couple of weeks, but they don't do it throughout the year. Like you've got to make time for that each and every day. Like there's got to be some sort of community building throughout the day, every day. Because if you only do it in the beginning, like your work in those first couple of weeks is gonna pay dividends. But if you're not consistent in your expectations for the classroom culture and allowing some fun to occur within your walls, like it's gonna crumble real fast too. So you can build it. It can be crumbled as quickly as you can build it.
And you know, as teachers. Go ahead.
Each day with a community meeting. And so with our morning meeting, we do an activity each day where we acknowledge we should look everyone in the eye, each person, and we acknowledge each person's existence. We say everyone's name each day and we do an activity together. And that is the reason why in our responsive classrooms, we have order and we have community. We have a sense of togetherness because we are one. And that's the reason why it works.
So if you're just tuning in, this is the Recess Podcast kickoff of season 2. We're talking about relationships matter. And so I have some phenomenal educators with me, and we're just having a discussion right now about the importance of relationship between teacher and student. So I want y'all to bear with me for a second. Everybody knows that when they tune into the Recess Podcast, I get into these little soliloquies where I go off. But I promised myself in season 2, I wouldn't go ham. But I got to say something real quick. I just got to get this out. And this is for new teachers and wannabe teachers, because I'm calling folks out. Season 2, I'm calling people out. So you new teachers and wannabe teachers. And Dustin, you said it. If you do the icebreaker the first 2 weeks, kudos for you, right? That's you checking a box saying, my principal told me to do an icebreaker, right? But I need to know that when October comes, after fall break, when everybody gets restless and kids start to get less engaged, what are you doing to make sure your classroom community is brought back together? So do you have a post check on your classroom that in the middle of you teaching that math formula, you can say, you know what, pencils down, books closed, everybody come to the front. And you just have that come to Jesus moment with your children. Because if you're not having that come to Jesus moment in October and November and December and January, February, and so on and so forth, then you play in school. And at this point, with these kids and COVID and everything happening, if you play in school, you got to go. You got to get up out of here. If you're not building authentic relationships every single day, every single minute, you got to go. And principals like myself and parents that are listening and watching, we got to get them folks up out of here. Teachers, if you got that person next door to you that ain't building relationships, either tell them or coach them up or kick them out.
Coach them out.
Coach them out. One of the two, right? Yeah. They got to go. So that's all I'm going to say for now. I'm going to get these comments posted, okay? We're going to take a moment to highlight our people who are tuning in to the Recess Podcast. First of all, I love everybody that's tuning in. We're doing some great numbers, but I think the conversation that we're having needs to happen with everything going on. So I'm going to get these going. Because this next section of the conversation, it's about to get real. And I'm saying as a principal that it's going to get real, because we're about to talk about the importance of the relationship between the teacher and the school, or the teacher and the principal. And here's why. Because I was a teacher, you all are teachers. I'm not working in a place where I ain't loved. I'm gonna call it like it is. If you're not loving on me, then you can't get my goodness. I'm sorry. Like,
let me update my resume while we take a break.
Right.
So look, again, I want to talk about the relationship between between teacher and school, right? So, Juanita, I'm putting you on the spot. I'm putting you on the spot, Juanita, because Juanita and I are friends, man, because we talk about this every day, right? We talk about, you push me as a principal, you say, like, McGuire, like, how are you building these relationships with your staff? And some of my teachers are watching, right? So they will definitely call me out, for sure. But how important as a teacher, somebody that loves their kid and passionate about their craft, and how important is to get that same love and that same respect from your school or your principal?
Like we said earlier, like, we have to let our students know that we care. And until we know that, we don't care what they have to say. So I'm going to say, I appreciate that while I was working there with you, you allowed the space and opportunity for us to push back and challenge, of course, in a respectful way. But there were plenty of times where I would question stuff, and just because I wanted to better understand, but I also felt value. Like, there were times where you would come to me and say, hey, can you do this? I've seen you do this well. Can you share this? Like, teachers, just like anybody else, needs to know that they are valued, that they are seen, that what they are doing is great. Or even if it's not great, tell me that too. Like, I like to be coached. I ask for it. But if I don't have a relationship with the administrator or within the school where I can go and ask for that help, or even just say, tell me that I'm doing well. Come into my classroom just to tell me you're doing a good job. I don't have any feedback. So I think that's why it's important, because we all want to grow and we all need to be recognized.
Yeah, I agree. I think the parallels being drawn between student and teacher and administrator are pretty much the same. The firm believer that who do students perform best for? The people that they know care, the people they respect. So who's a teacher going to perform best for? An administrator or somebody that they know respects their talents and what they have to offer, and is willing to give that constructive criticism when needed, but also willing to show that appreciation and love for what the teacher's doing when they're going above and beyond. You're always going to do more for people that care about you. They care about not only your ability to move mountains in classrooms, but also who you are as a person. So it's huge. It's huge.
I'm gonna say this. I serve children, so regardless of the leadership I have, I'm gonna still do what I know is right for kids. There have been times where I was unsure of how my leader felt about me, and not just where I am now. In my previous school, I was unsure. And I will say that these last 2 school years, it has really manifested itself. And I'm just like, man, these people really believe in me. Even stuff where I've said stuff and I might say stuff, but I think it was stuff they needed to, like, they've heard me say stuff, but they needed to see something in me in order to trust me in that capacity, where I might talk about, culturally responsive teaching this and this and that, but it's like, okay, but in order for us to trust you with teaching others, I need to see you do this. And so when they gave me this huge platform, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, they really trust me. And my principal asked me something a few months ago, and it meant the world to me, where she asked me, what can I do to help you grow? And all I asked her was, give me chances to just watch opportunities to see you doing things that I normally wouldn't see in room 115. And that is really what she's done. Like, I might be in the front office when something's popping off, and I'm just like, ooh. And she handles things with such grace, where those are the things that I really need to learn. I don't need to learn some of this stuff from the books or things that I'm learning in a class. It's those other situations that I need to learn from. So that relationship with her, it's like we went from like just this base level where it just shot through the moon, because I felt like she's really principling me now and mentoring me, if that's a word, and mentoring me now and helping me to grow into who I want to be. Like, I mean, it means the world to just know that you believe in me as a person at my core.
Yeah. The reason why this is, so people ask, like, why did you start the Recess podcast? Is like, I like having these conversations. I have conversations like this with people all the time. But for me, like, I get to interview and talk with teachers. And so as a principal, like, I be writing down notes, right? Like different things that I want to grow at. Because for me, like, I've made my fair share of mistakes, right? As a leader, as a principal, with the way I've treated people. But the one thing that I feel like I can stand on is that most people, I'm not gonna say all, because I probably pissed off some people that no longer work for me, but the majority of people that have worked with me, or you know, in this case, like work under me as teachers, I think they could say that, you know what, McGuire does care. Like, he loves his kids unapologetically, and Price will tell you, I'm all about my kids, but I do care about teachers, right? And I try to give teachers platform and spaces, because just like kids, to Dustin said, if the kids know you like them, they're going to learn for you. And if that teacher knows that you like them, they will run through a brick wall for you. One of my mentors, Kelly Marshall, said to me, she said, McGuire, you got to get your front row. Who's your front row of teachers? Because if you get that front row of teachers, they will go to war with you, right? They will do whatever you ask them to do. And so what I tell principals, young principals, and I'm saying young principals, like I ain't young, but when you interview teachers, and when you get teachers in your building, you need to foster that relationship. Like, you need to authentically foster that relationship. That doesn't mean that means observing them, giving them feedback, helping them grow, but also means giving them a platform, a space to say, Miss McGuire, this new initiative you started, nah, man, like we got to talk about this, right? And like Price said, you do it in a respectful way, because we're trying to build a school community. And I'm gonna put right here, administrators have to create a safe space for teachers to be comfortable with asking questions, voicing their concerns, receiving feedback. That comes with building relationships, just like teacher-student, parent-student relationship. Open, honest communication is key. We got to be open as principals. And if you aren't allowing your teachers that space, my teachers know we have come to Jesus moments in staff PD sometimes where folks just got to get it out, right? Yeah. About what's going on in the building. And so you don't have to answer, but I'm going to ask, because the people want to know, like, don't use any names, but like, have you ever had a bad experience as a teacher in the school? And maybe not divulging too much, but what about that experience made it bad? And ultimately, like, what did you learn as a teacher about, like, I know this ain't right, you know? Because I think people want to, I mean, it's a real conversation, right? So how has those bad experiences shaped you as a teacher, if you had them?
Excuse me. So I want to say yes. And I guess what I can share is that, to what Kasha said, yes, I'm still doing my job. I'm still doing what I need to do, but it's difficult if I don't feel like I have all the resources that I need, or if it's just something that I'm struggling with. Like, this was my first year in second grade. So to be able to go and ask, like, hey, can you run me through how to do this? I've done it with kindergartners, but can you show me how to do it right here? Especially knowing that they're going into third grade next year. So it's a little difficult, like whoever the last comment was when it was saying like it needs to be a safe space. So maybe it was just me not feeling safe in asking for help, because it was almost like you don't know what to do, or like find it on your own type thing. And it's like, we shouldn't have to do that if we're all here working for the kids. And I got to add this in because it was something you said, McGuire. And I don't know why it brought back that day. Like, I literally was in class teaching a polar bear lesson, and I text McGuire, and I think the AP now, I was like, I just had an idea. I really want to do this. And they were like, when? I was like, tomorrow. Like, so it might have been like Thursday. And on Friday, we flipped the gym and made it like a polar, I don't know, what was it? Everything where the students literally went through stations. So like that type of relationship too, knowing not only can I go and ask questions about things, you know, academic based, but also being able to show and do things for the students. And I didn't just do it for my class. I'm like, come on, other kindergarten class, come on, first, like, whoever wants to come. Like, so that type of space where you can learn, grow, and have fun.
That's huge. Like, if it's right for kids, then it's right. So like, you have to have an administrator that wants you to do the right things and not put that fire out. Like, if you got teachers that are on fire and they're wanting to do stuff like what you just said, like, don't come down and put that fire out, because then that fire that teacher has that they could go ignite others is being diffused for the rest of the staff. And so I think that what you were saying about the front seven, you also have to the back seven. So like, if you get that front seven to run through a wall for you, but you have the back seven that are fighting everything the front seven are doing, that school culture and climate is at odds. And that's where like the safe space and staff meetings where everybody has something they want to say, but nobody's saying it. Then you start to see all the things that start to manifest into bigger issues. And when that building climate starts to take a turn for the worst, then you're going to see the results going out the window as well. So there's teachers like us that are there for the right reasons, but you got to have everybody on the same playing field.
Couple things, Dustin. First of all, I'm gonna steal that back seven. I'm about to be using that. You about to see that on Twitter, hashtag the back seven for sure. But Dustin, I want to ask you, because I think anybody knows that follow you, like, man, I think the stuff you're doing in your classroom, dog, is like crazy. So like, how your principal or your administration, how important was them to just say, you know what, Dustin, go be great? Like, how much for you as a teacher did that build confidence for you to just, I mean, I've seen you do some off the wall things, right, for the sake of children, but how important was it to have that backing from your school and your administration to say, you know, if it's right for kids, go do it?
Right. So it's not always there. Like, it's not always there. When it is, it's great. And but like Kasha said, you know, I'm there for the children, so I'm gonna close my door and do it. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm pulling up lines and I'm closing my door. I'm gonna do it because I know that 5 years down the road, this is going to be an experience my kids are going to remember. So they're not going to put out my fire. Like, I don't know. This is my 10th year. I'm not 2 years in. I'm not going to experience burnout because I'm doing more than what's required. Like, 10 years in, if I'm still doing it, it's because I love to do it. Like, there's no other way to sustain it if it's not something that you're genuinely passionate about. So, yeah, it's huge. And it definitely helps when somebody's on board, but when they're not, I'm still going to do it.
I'm going to speak on that, and I don't know if Mr. Eli is still online. I will say that they do back me. Sometimes they peek their head in like, what is Hayden doing here? But they know that it is engaging and my kids are learning. First of all, my school, I bring the data. In God we trust, everybody else got to bring data. My data shows it, but you know what? My kids are engaged, but it was one time when I was doing an experiment with my kids. Well, I didn't know the fumes had left the classroom. So all of a sudden, everybody came like rushing into my room and he's looking at me. He's like, girl, I'm like, what? And there was order in the room, but yeah, we had to kind of evacuate. But we were doing a science project, but you take risk and you create risk takers in your classroom, but they do trust me to make those decisions in a smarter way most of the time, but where they know that my kids are going to learn and that, you know, that's what's going to happen in my classroom, that I'm going to take risks, that I'm going to figure out what works and what didn't work. And we're going to try it again next time in a way that just, I don't know, that is going to make sure that my kids get everything they need to be successful no matter what. And I love that I have the backing of not just my principal, but my building leader and my instructional coach and whoever else, even my teammates. They're like, what do you do for this? And I'm like, ooh, I did this last year. I'm gonna try this. If you do it, then I can do it again.
Absolutely. Listen, first of all, you guys are walking quotes right now. I got folks texting me, tweeting me, writing on Facebook. Like, I'm about to start a Recess Podcast quote, and y'all about to be featured because y'all preaching today. I mean, because I think Dustin and Dustin, Juanita wanted me to ask, what's that thing you're standing on in your room? Like, what is that?
No, so I used to just have like a couple tables that I took the legs off and I lowered it down. But actually, a former student, her dad or his dad, she'll be in 4th grade next year, but he built it. And it's like a stage, but I use a whiteboard paint to cover it. And so it's a working space as well. So like I have it down the middle and I'll be up there and I can teach from it. But then kids can get up and teach on it as well. But when I'm wanting to teach, all 31 of my kids can wrap around that stage with a whiteboard marker and solve problems on it as well. Take notes, whatever else. If I'm reading, they might be sketching what I'm reading while I'm reading. So it's like a stage, but it doubles as a workspace and table as well.
I need a plug.
Hey, we need that plug for real.
Yeah, I've always wanted a stage. I've always wanted a stage.
It's awesome. Not just for me, but like when the kids get up, like they're standing up there and they're able to like, kind of own the floor. Like, yeah, I love it. It's fun.
So Madeline just gave us, I think, I'm putting this on a t-shirt next year. amazing teachers are trailblazers and rule breakers. I believe.
Oh, my principal's not watching. She always calls me a rule breaker.
Listen, straight like that. Y'all, listen, trailblazers and Dustin, to your point, I'm gonna shut the door, put the blinds down, and I'm gonna break the rules because at the end of the day, if I'm breaking rules for the sake of kids, I can sleep at night.
Yeah.
So,
and if you're annoyed with me because I'm doing stuff for kids, and that's not my problem.
well, you're a hater.
No. I'm not just talking about Adam. I'm talking about Steph as well. Like,
yeah.
Okay, so if you're mad because kids are excited about what's going on in my room, what are you doing to make them excited to be in your room? Like, that's not my responsibility.
That's a podcast in itself, talking about haters in the building. Man, I can't be on that podcast. I can't because
no. So that's definitely going to be a show because there's a lot of haters. Because here's my thing: competition should breed excellence. So if I got a teacher like Dustin standing on stages and doing these things in the classroom, I'm about to go home and I might not build a stage, but I'm gonna dress up like the character in the book, and we about to reenact this whole book. I'm gonna do whatever it takes, right?
Find your thing.
Exactly.
Find your thing.
It's not sustainable if you're not about being up on a stage and dancing and singing like me. That's fine. What are you doing that's you that you can maintain? Because if it's not sustainable, you're not going to do it long term anyway. So don't be you. Be the best you. You're only you. I'm only me. Yeah. So, but you got to find a way to make your kids excited to walk in your door instead of being mad that they're not walking in mine.
Yeah. I got some folks, Justin. They need that stage, man. You got to put the link on the stage.
They don't need a stage. They don't need a stage. A voice.
That's it. I want a stage. Yeah, I like to dance too.
Listen, don't be mad. Get like me. Again, there's another T-shirt. So first of all, the Recess podcast is about to get a website. I'm about to be selling shirts and buttons because I'm about to start quoting folks. Don't be mad, get like me, wristbands and it all. Because at the end of the day, listen, y'all better step y'all game up for these kids. Hey, you know what?
And don't call yourself a culturally responsive teacher if you're not willing to do the culturally responsive teaching. Because that's exactly what that is, Dustin.
I don't
and not do it, but that's another podcast too. I'm not.
Yeah, I had a coworker that was fantastic. I had a teacher on my team a few years ago. We're polar opposites in the classroom. How we ran our classrooms couldn't have been more different. But his kids were excited to go into his room, because he gave them a voice, he respected them, he had relationships. You don't have to be up on the stage dancing and singing for your kids to be excited to come to you. They didn't come down with jealousy because they knew when they were walking into the room, they had a space where they were valued. So, at the end of the day, you don't have to do all the crazy stuff I'm doing to be effective. Do what's natural to you and make sure your kids want to be with you.
You got to find what fits you as a teacher. That's the point. But I'm gonna say this too: if your kids ain't learning, you better do something. You hear me? Because if there's one thing that COVID-19 has taught me is that when we do get back into the school space, these teachers better bring it. They better bring it. They better bring it because these kids are coming with a different type of trauma. And I'm talking about all kids, because COVID doesn't see color. It don't see race. It don't see socioeconomics. It's hit everybody. And so all kids are going to need a teacher. As Rita Pearson said, God rest her soul, they're going to need a teacher that's going to be a champion. They're going to need that teacher that's going to go above and beyond and show that they care. That's going to maximize every piece of fiber that they have in their body to ensure that they become the very best version of themselves. And again, like I said in the beginning, if you ain't about this life, you got to go. I'm sorry, you got to go, man.
No, I totally agree with you. And if it's any teachers that are watching that want to know where to start, look up the neuroscience of trust. Of trust. Think about or oxytocin and what that chemical does when it comes to trust, how your brain works when it comes to trust. Look that up, start there, and let that take you, and you build those relationships with your students. Learn to listen, have a chat. If you don't know what to say, ask a question and listen.
You don't always have to talk.
Right.
Sometimes all the kids want you to do is listen.
Yeah. Listen, my mama said God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth so you can listen twice as much as you speak.
And don't take your mama's quote and then put it on a T-shirt.
I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. So I'm gonna make sure you get your credit. No, but I mean that's important. People need to be. you need to listen as a teacher, right? And sometimes listening also comes from watching, right? Sometimes your kids are talking to you without even saying words. Just the emotion that's on their face or their body language is speaking to you like, help me.
I love that you raise your hand.
It's like double dutch. Just jump in.
Okay, well, I mean, that's why relationships are important, right? Because at the beginning of the school year, we threshold, right? Yeah. So we're seeing our students one by one as they come in, and at Summit, we got to dance and everything. Like, I was extra. I love to dance. So my students all greeted me with some type of dance, not just a fist bump or a hug. But anyways, as we get to know them, we have that temperature check as well. And if they walk in and it looks like something is wrong, I get to say, hey, stand over here for a second, or I'll walk away from the door and then I'll ask another student. So my students are very responsible for themselves. Like one of the students will step to the door and greet the rest of them if they see that I walked off with somebody else. Yeah. So yeah, relationships matter.
Listen, so this is the Recess Podcast. The kickoff of season 2 has been incredible. The conversation's been rich. So before we close out, I close out every show the same way. And if you watched it, I give people a platform, right? And so, Price, I'm going to let you go first because somewhere in here, I posted the link to your article and I'm going to find it. But in this moment, I want you to take 3 to 5 minutes to just whatever you want to share with the folks, whether it's something about you or the work that you're doing, about your school, about education in general. So, Price, I got there you go, right there. Your piece that was put in the 74, about the parent-teacher supports inside and outside the classroom. So Price, I know you, so I know you're doing a lot of good work. So just tell the folks a little bit about the work that you're doing with Birth to Purpose and everything like that.
How you know? Okay, I'm just kidding. So, I mean, he kind of put it out there. So I am starting my own brand. It's Birth to Purpose. I got a little card I can show y'all. But so you will see this coming soon. Like basically I'm saying it's in the chrysalis stage, but I don't know. I'm just here to do whatever it takes for the students, whatever it takes. He has the link for that blog in there. I basically said it's our job too to make sure that we equip the parents with what it is that they need, because a lot of parents don't know what they can do to help their students. And then things change so much. So I feel like I'm obligated to educate the parent just as much as I'm educating their child so that we can do what it takes to get that student where they're going. Another shameless plug, I don't really have the link right now, but I'm going to find it. I'm going to be on a panel with, I'm going to be on a panel tomorrow where we're talking about starting the work to prepare students for the future of work as early as like elementary school. So I'm going to find that link and share it with y'all. And some of y'all that are following me on Twitter, you've seen it already and I'll share it here. But I need the support, the help, the encouragement, the accountability, because I know that there are a lot of us out there that really want to do the work. We just need to come together and do it.
Well, Price, I think I found what you were looking for. Hold on, if I can find it somewhere. Your link. Oh, wait a minute. There we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm multitasking. So there you go. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Price, I've known you. I've known the work of Birth to Purpose. I know the roots of how, Gary in the end. I give you a hard time about Gary, but I know that there's some things that you want to do and there's some things you want to accomplish here in Indy to ultimately take to Gary. So definitely want to give you this platform in this space, and you're always welcome. So thank you. And oh man, no doubt. So Kasha, you've been talking a lot about culturally responsive teaching. So I know you got some words of wisdom for the folks.
And so that's a lot of my focus is on, like I said, I'm a certified responsive class. If nobody knows what responsive classroom is, it is an approach to learning. And so I'm a certified responsive classroom educator. I use it in my classroom. I teach it at my school and in the community to other teachers. It is something I'm very passionate about, and it's because it works. And I didn't know how well it worked until I started at my school. So that's where when I said that, I said, oh, if it works here, it can work anywhere. And also,
where can people find you? Like, where can they reach out to you if they need some help?
You can find me at Class with Cash, CLASS with KASH on Instagram and Twitter. I talk a lot about neuroscience and culturally responsive teaching. And the way that they intertwine, sometimes people think it's one and the other. It's so that you have to make them work with each other. And it's a tool that you use to increase engagement for marginalized students. And we have to do that work together. So seek me out. I answer all questions. I can talk about this all day long. So there's no too many questions.
Love it. Dustin, listen, you got to point people to the work that you're doing, man. Like, I think anybody that's coming up in education, I think anybody that's you're at that decade point where you're kind of like, I need that itch and that urn. I got to find my juice again. Like, I think people that watch your videos instantly get inspired. So, like, just tell the folks, where they can find you, where they can reach you, and just something you want to share with them. Like, I guess getting over that hump. Because that decade, that's a big time, man. So
I'm getting old, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm getting old. No, Ecker Dustin, real original. But no, I think you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, and here obviously. But Ecker, Ecker, Dustin. I think when it comes to the classroom in general, I think just when you go back to like first year teachers or teachers right now that are maybe starting to feel a little jaded towards the system, like first question would be like, are you always trying to be right with your students? And if so, humble yourself.
Right.
Like, when are you wrong and how can you grow? Find ways to connect with kids. I'm all about relationships. I see relationships first popping up everywhere. My hashtag is relate and educate. You can use it, don't steal it. But relate and educate is my philosophy. And I'm doing, like, I just started this year finally, like getting out of my comfort zone and stepping into keynotes, emphasizing the importance of relationships. And so I think just as you go into the classroom, especially when we go back, you're going to have to find a way to level up in one way or another. Whether that means getting out of your comfort zone and being a little bit more energetic or whatever else, but you're going to have to humanize yourself a little bit too. You can't come in as an authoritative figure after kids been out of school for 7-8 months. So how are you going to humanize yourself? Make sure your kids know that you are willing to go the extra for them, so they're willing to go back to the extra for you, because they've been laying in bed for the 7-8 months by that point in time. So, like you said, when we go back, just come ready to bring it, because you're going to need to.
Yes.
Before I get off into my closing parting shots, I just want to say how appreciative and just like humbled and just honored it is to like sit in this space with you all. Like, I'm a fanboy of education. Okay, that's what I call myself. I'm a fanboy of education, and I love educators, and I follow each of you. And I may not have known all you as personally as much, but I follow your careers. And so when I thought of this, it was really great because like I already had in mind who I was going to reach out to. Like, so like I was like, I'm going to get Dustin and Juanita and Kasha. We're going to have this little nice conversation. So first of all, I appreciate you all for being on. I appreciate the realness. I appreciate the knowledge that you dropped. This show has done some incredible. We've done some good numbers, man. I think people have really enjoyed this conversation because it's a conversation that needs to happen. And so I appreciate you all. So before we close, I just want to let you know, this has been the Recess Podcast, Relationships Matter. There's a lot that you probably gotten from this. And so this is going to be a podcast that I think people watch over and over just because of the things that we talked about. So I'll make sure I share that link for past episodes on Anchor, on my Facebook page, on my Twitter page for people to watch it later on. Because people are going to need it, because when you're going to see your names come up in research papers when people write their dissertation about the importance of relationship in schools, they're going to be quoting the Recess Podcast episode 6, and they're going to be quoting you all because you guys have dropped some gems. So I want to thank everybody for listening. The folks that's commented, you make this podcast what it is. We're trying to do something different here in the city of Indianapolis. And so, my motto is create the platform, control the conversation, change the culture. That's the Recess Podcast. You can catch us next week. I'm going to have, I think, one of the most prolific education writers in the city. Educator Barnes is going to join me next week. We're going to talk about being unapologetically Black and having a conversation about what's it like being a Black educator in Indianapolis, because there's a lot of people, particularly our Black educators, because we're going to talk to some of y'all, because some of y'all are trifling. And I'm going to call you out right now because you're not doing right by kids. And I'm going to just say it. So me and Educator Barnes, we're going to have that conversation. another episodes that we're going to have coming up. June 2nd, we're going to be joined with Teach for America about dispelling the myths. And then June 9th, we're going to have We Are White Teachers and We Teach Students of Color. Because I think it's also a conversation that needs to be had as well. So it's the Recess Podcast, and we're going to have these real conversations. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Catch us on YouTube at the Recess Podcast on our YouTube page. Go ahead, Price.
I should have just jumped in. Stop calling the people that ain't doing right by kids educators.
Ooh.
They might be trying teaching, but they're not educators.
There's another shirt. There's another shirt for everybody. Yeah, so real quick, before we go, what we gonna call them? Yeah, put you on the spot. There you go. Save that for next next week. Dustin, Kasha, Juanita, I love you guys. Thank you. Anything I can do. Much love, everybody. This has been the Recess Podcast, and we are out.
Thank you.
Peace, everybody.